My name is Mark Ritchie, and I'm now retired, but I've spent my life working on agriculture and food issues, and I haven't stopped one bit, even though I'm now retired.
Amazing. So, what does urban agriculture even mean to you?
Well, I'd like to start with the definition that Michael Chaney from Project Sweetie Pie uses all the time. It's farming in the city. But I think in this moment, what we're seeing is that it's the redefinition of farming and agriculture to be inclusive of anyone and everyone's activities to raise flowers, to raise food, to help pollinators find the nectar they need to then keep our apricot trees. And it's a broadly now accepted movement that says we have special things that are urban, but in fact we need to think of everything as urban, suburban, rural, and we need to think of them as united, not as divided.
Absolutely. And what are the things that you think that help people even recognize that we do have more in common amongst the different localities in the state?
Well, I like to begin almost always with history because just to be specific, our nation really honored and especially praised victory gardens, the notion that growing the food that we need was very important to winning the war. But I go back even further. Minnesota was the place where farmers and everybody came together to be able to feed the starving people of Belgium and northern France due to a British blockade where they wouldn't let food in. And what was important about that is how much children and schools and families, they created meatless Mondays, and they created new diets and moved to save wheat to send to people that were hungry because of a war and to food the corn. So we have had a history of people thinking about food and production in multiple ways, and sometimes it's to be patriotic and help win the war, sometimes it's being gentle and humane and humanitarian and trying to help feed people other ways. So that's one of the mechanisms by which we begin to say, oh, there's some new things, but they're really built on old things. The second is that I like to use the metaphor of how we inherit things from the past, but we need to be responsible for maintaining them. Because one part of this larger question is how are we protecting the land, the soil, the biodiversity? In my neighborhood, there's signs, no mow May. In the Netherlands, I have friends, and they have a very big focus on all the birds that have nests on the ground. And if you're not paying attention and being careful, you can destroy the nest. And so there's the aspect of being responsible for maintaining and making stronger and more fertile and more productive that which we've inherited around our food production. I think the final part that is the thing that connects generation to generations is to say, you know, people in the past built us a society, a community, a transportation system, electrical power system, all of the systems we rely on, and our job is keeping them up, yes, but equally important, our job is thinking about the future for times we shall never see. And one of the things about agriculture and horticulture and arbor taking care of trees is that people will plant walnut trees absolutely knowing they will never sit under them for shade and never have the benefits of the walnuts, therefore a future generation. Those things of knowing our history and how we're interwoven together with food and food production, where the whole nation is sort of mobilized, thinking about how do we take care of things in the present, and challenging each other to say, what are we doing that's beyond honoring the past and taking care of the present? What are we doing that is investing for that future for times we shall never see?
Well said. So what are you seeing as the barriers for people to even understand what was done in the past in order to understand how to do these gardens now? What are the challenges that people have?
Well, I think the challenges are somewhat, let's say there are some challenges that are society-wide and apply to almost any topic, and then there are some challenges that are very specific around food. One of the kind of general challenges is just the ability to remember that history matters, and so how we share history. Families tell stories down generations. Movies pass on stories or make them up. Books are important. Some people like to ban books, for gosh sakes. Others like to honor books. They are where we have stories. And so, just in general, making sure that we are keeping strong in our honoring of our ancestors and all of our ancestors, our stories that are some of our own family, but they're more broadly, and of the larger stories of civilization. And some of those are captured in our most sacred, our text, our Bibles and others. Some of those stories are captured in our classic literature, which sometimes are not thought of as exciting, but they have so much wisdom. And some of those stories are etched into walls and carved onto woodwork and painted onto porcelain, and they are in the artifacts was one word, but they're in the items of our past. But I think one of the larger things about food has been the very specific aspects of the belief that a kind of marketing and advertising and promotion, whether it's a prominent label that shows up on a movie, all of a sudden, like, what are they doing? Or TV advertising, or billboards, or whatever. It's easy to see that advertising is not a company wasting money. Advertising works, and what it does in some respects is advertise the notion of certain kinds of food or certain processed food, or the idea that food comes from the sky and just shows up on a shelf and you just take it home and that's food. And so there isn't enough, and hopefully this can be addressed, of the communications that use the word advertising or promotion of the notion of how delicious this is. And I remember when the first publicly, I would say, promoted or media attention on a school garden was in Berkeley, California, and it was a restaurant owner that started it. And I remember that it was the faces of the kids in the TV coverage as news who said, I would never eat this before, but once I grew it, then I found out it was delicious. So in that little story is one of the stories, which is if you participate in a process and you see something grown, then you're interested in it and then you try it. Our household has a 19-month-old and who somehow figured out about being able to pull a cherry tomato off the arbor and then would do 10 or 20. And so you go, well, certain of our habits, our taste habits and others are part of what it takes to have the desire for a balanced and a nutritious meal. And so being able to find those experiential things. And so we can talk about urban farming as producing for a food shelf, or to sell in a supermarket, or to sell in a restaurant, yes. But maybe more important, we can think of it as the experience that tells the next generation who's coming up behind us, this is where food comes from. So respect those who are producing. This is where it comes from. Try it. This is where it comes from. And you have grown this. Share it with your friends at school. Share it with your grandma or your papa. Or this is what we put into a jar or a frozen container for the middle of winter. Oh, it's December. Let's bring out that corn. And so maybe that aspect of thinking of urban farming as simply giving it's now about half the population in urban. I mean, there's different numbers, but it's a lot. Giving half the population the opportunity, I would say the privilege, the special treasure of an experience that can help them be part of the kind of larger, I'm aware of food. Food comes from the earth and from people who bring it to us, or it comes from the seas and the waters and people bring it to us. We say grace to honor the Creator as we sit down at the table sometimes. And there's something to the notion of stopping for a moment at the table at the beginning of a meal to say thank you to creation. And that's part of a universal opportunity in whatever the religion or whatever the place, whatever the circumstance, to say, for just a moment, we're going to pause and be grateful to the hands that prepared, the hands that turned the soil, the creation, the biodiversity, the interconnection of nature. And so that might be one of those things where we understand in general, if we pause and just think for a moment, probably the next moments will be better. Our actions will be more thoughtful. Our expression of energy or love will be more concentrated if we stop for just a moment to be grateful.
Well said. Thank you.